Star Trek is ready to transform Worf's son into the franchise's most exciting Klingon. Here's how. When it comes to Star Trek's vast tapestry of characters, few have been as iconic or as burdened by complicated storytelling as Worf. The first Klingon to serve as a main character in Starfleet, Worf Michael Dorn became a fan favorite thanks to his unique balance of warrior tradition, stoic honor, and awkward human socialization. But while Worf's journey is one of the most fleshed out in franchise history, his son, Alexander Rozhenko, was always left stranded somewhere between half-finished ideas and unrealized potential. Now, with Star Trek continuing to thrive on Paramount Plus and boldly reviving beloved characters in unexpected ways, Alexander may finally be positioned to step into the spotlight. And if handled right, Worf's son could transform into the most exciting Klingon Star Trek has ever given us, melding tradition with reinvention in a way that honors both his father's legacy and modern storytelling. Here's how Star Trek can finally make Alexander Rozhenko a Klingon worth celebrating. 1. Revisiting Alexander's complex legacy. Alexander first appeared in Star Trek: The Next Generation when Worf learned of the child he fathered with Keller. From the beginning, Alexander's story was complicated. He was a Klingon who wasn't raised in Klingon culture, and his half-human heritage and struggles with Klingon values left him feeling adrift. Unlike his father, who fought tooth and nail to preserve his honor, Alexander was often awkward, reluctant, and uninterested in the warrior path. This tension came to a head in Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, when Alexander joined the Klingon Defense Force against Worf's wishes. By then, Alexander was portrayed as a young man out of step with Klingon ideals, sometimes comic relief, sometimes tragic, but rarely the full-blooded Klingon successor Worf envisioned. His arc ended without resolution, leaving him one of Trek's most unfinished characters. But Alexander's very contradictions, his half-Klingon identity, his discomfort with Klingon militarism, his unresolved relationship with Worf, make him uniquely suited for a modern Star Trek revival. In a franchise that now embraces shades of gray, trauma, and cultural reinvention, Alexander can step forward as a Klingon who doesn't fit neatly into traditional molds. 2. Klingons are ripe for reinvention. Every era of Star Trek has reimagined Klingons, from their original ridgeless appearance in the original series to the heavily stylized redesigns in Discovery. Yet for all their prominence, Klingons are often pigeonholed as the warrior species, a culture defined more by combat than complexity. Worf helped humanize this view, but the Klingon Empire remains largely locked in tropes of battle, politics, and blood feuds. Alexander offers an opportunity to push beyond those limits. Unlike most Klingons, he embodies multiple cultures, raised on Earth, schooled in Federation ideals, and still carrying Klingon blood and legacy. His existence challenges the Empire's rigid traditions, making him an ideal lens through which Star Trek could explore Klingon society in ways it has never dared before. Where Worf was about reconciling personal honor with Federation service, Alexander could represent something more radical: the transformation of Klingon identity itself. He doesn't need to reject his roots, but he can reshape them, giving Star Trek a Klingon who redefines what strength, leadership, and belonging truly mean. 3. Building on Worf's Picard transformation. Michael Dorn's return as Worf in Star Trek: Picard Season 3 proved how beloved the character remains. But Worf's evolution also set the stage for Alexander's rebirth. In Picard, Worf had grown into a calmer, wiser warrior monk, still deadly in combat, but now guided by patience, philosophy, and humor. His balance of Klingon ferocity and inner peace felt like a natural next step for the character. Imagine Alexander building on that same arc. If Worf found enlightenment after decades of struggle, perhaps Alexander could find identity after decades of confusion. Worf's arc was about discipline. Alexander's could be about reinvention. While Worf carved a path for Klingons inside Starfleet, Alexander could carve one for Klingons beyond the warrior stereotype entirely. In other words, where Worf embodied tradition elevated, Alexander could embody tradition transformed. 4. The perfect storytelling era for Alexander's return. Star Trek currently thrives on a mix of nostalgia and reinvention. Picard revisited beloved characters, Strange New Worlds reimagines classic lore, and Lower Decks brings humor to canon. Each series thrives by looking back while also moving forward. Alexander fits perfectly into this approach. Depending on where the timeline picks up, there are several opportunities for him to return. In a post-Picard series set in the 25th century, Alexander could reappear as a leader or outcast within the Klingon Empire. His unique perspective might make him essential in reshaping Klingon Federation relations. In an anthology series like Short Treks, a focused, character-driven short about Alexander could reintroduce him to audiences and gauge fan interest. As part of Worf's legacy, if Star Trek continues with a spin-off like Star Trek Legacy, Alexander's role could tie directly into Worf's ongoing presence, finally giving father and son a meaningful, resolved relationship. The time has never been better to bring him back, especially since fans are more willing than ever to embrace flawed, evolving characters. 5. How to make Alexander the most exciting Klingon. To truly make Alexander the standout Klingon of Star Trek's future, writers would need to lean into what makes him different. Here are some ways to achieve that. Give him a philosophy beyond combat. Worf already transformed from a rigid warrior into a figure of wisdom. Alexander could take that further by questioning the very foundation of Klingon culture. What if he became a reformer, a diplomat, or even a spiritual leader who challenged the Empire to expand beyond its warrior ethos? Explore his mixed heritage authentically. In past appearances, Alexander's human side was often treated as weakness. A modern show could flip that on its head, making his hybrid nature his strength. Like Spock before him, Alexander could represent the synthesis of two worlds, embodying unity instead of division. Reimagine Klingon politics through him. Star Trek has always thrived when Klingon leadership is in flux, whether it's Chancellor Gorkin, Gowron, or Martok. Alexander could step into this tradition, either as a reluctant leader or as a disruptive figure who forces the Empire to adapt. Imagine a Klingon who fights with ideas, not just weapons. Give him conflict with Worf, but resolve it. Perhaps most importantly, Star Trek owes fans a true resolution between Worf and Alexander. Their strained relationship has long been a dangling thread in Trek's canon. A story that brings them back together, not in tragedy but in understanding, would be deeply satisfying. Worf could finally recognize that his son's path, though different, is equally honorable. 6. Casting matters, and reinvention requires the right actor. For Alexander to succeed as a modern Klingon, casting is key. The actor must balance intensity with vulnerability, tradition with freshness. Fans want someone who can channel Worf's gravitas but also stand apart as his own man. A bold move would be to cast an actor with the same commanding presence Michael Dorn brought to Worf, but with a different energy